Welcome to this week's LEAP Weekly webinar called Feedback in the 21st Century. Now, this one is going to be a great webinar that really starts to bring together some of the things we've talked about and learned in this series on feedback here, but also going to build upon it and really look at some of the pieces that lie in delivering feedback really in today's world, in today's communication-driven, technology-driven world, and how that really looks. So, before we begin, what I really want to start with is just a quick little introduction to myself. My name is Ryan Boda. I'm one of the founding partners of LEAP Training and Coaching, which is a professional development organization that really specializes in consulting, training, coaching leaders, teams, and organizations to really reach their next level of greatness. And I personally am certified in conversational intelligence and really work with executive coaching, a lot with communication dynamics, and a lot with team development. And so I'm very excited to just be here with you today, share a little bit about feedback in the 21st century. Now, to begin, right now in the world, there's so much technology that there's always a new system, a new gadget, a new widget that can be used to take the place or to supplement feedback. And so what I want to say about it is I would never downplay the systems, but there's a lot more that goes into feedback than just allowing the systems to take over. And so what I want to do is look for ways for you to build upon a system that you have in place. Way back, a lot of the formalized feedback was probably on paper, right? We had the old paper, we had the reviews, and now we've really transitioned into more consistent feedback with online systems and things like that. So what we want to speak to is how do we keep employees really engaged and motivated during feedback, and to see it as an opportunity to grow and learn about their performance. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. Before we get started, I want to give you a little story here. I'm recently engaged, and so I went to a marriage prep retreat, and one of the things we were assigned to do was to work through the 5 Love Languages book, which was then going to be used to facilitate one breakout session. So we went through that, and I found the app that was connected to it. So there's a 5 Love Languages app. And if you don't know about this, go research, just Google 5 Love Languages, it's everywhere. And what the app actually is designed to do is you insert certain tasks, certain things that you would like to see from your partner, and then you can go through and show, like, where's your love tank? So how full are you? What, you can click like, oh, I'm a little low, and it will send that person a notification via the app to their phone, which is synced with yours, and allow them to know, oh, hey, they are saying that their love tank is low. They may need me to have my acts of service or a gift or personal time and things like that. And what I really walked away with is that it is such an interesting tool, right, to take a concept like love languages and make it into a technology feedback system. But when using it, it really does still boil down to you still have to communicate about it. You still have to have conversations about it. And so the app's there as a support, but not as the end-all be-all of the communication. And we need to treat our feedback systems, our performance reviews, whatever it is, the exact same way. We have a lot of systems in place now, like employee engagement systems, which are designed that you can give kudos, emojis, and things like that, send them between people. You might have the systems that produce badges the more you interact on them, or they're games and you get through certain steps in this process. And those have their own value. But sometimes you can find that they become burdensome. And so what we found is that the feedback really comes to, how am I delivering feedback? How am I presenting it? How have I created that culture of feedback, accountability, follow-up, and all of that? So that's what we're going to talk about. And so really, when we look at feedback in the 21st century, there's a few concepts we really speak to. And the first one we want to talk about is alignment in your feedback with your mission and values. So with a set of clients of ours, we had this huge clinic of 60 people, and they really struggled to communicate, work together, and things like that. One of their tasks was to work on using their 5 core values of their company to recognize and acknowledge people. It's a type of feedback. And so they had to come up with systems, whether it be one time it was during the winter months and they found a little tree to hang little ornaments on and write what somebody was doing well and which value it correlated with and things like that. But the whole point of it was to start providing feedback in a way that aligns it with the mission, the values of the company, because it helps bring alignment between what am I doing that is speaking volumes to who this company is, that helps me get engaged at a deeper level in connection with my loyalty, my pride in my organization and what I'm bringing, and all of those things. So why we always tell people to incorporate and align mission and values into feedback is because it really helps set those sails. Those mission and values is like having the rudder, right, on a boat that allows you to navigate where are you going as a company, where am I fitting in as a company. But without that mission and values, sometimes we just spin in circles. We're not sure what's going on. And so by really adding in those values and those mission and that mission, you're really helping your person that you're providing feedback, or if you're receiving feedback, bring clarity and alignment to what's my role, how am I supporting this organization. Another thing in the 21st century that's really important is to take out the personal. We have a lot of drama, a lot of complaints, negativity, frustration, stress, and all those things enough in the world. And so when we talk about taking out the personal, it's about when providing feedback. One of our biggest fears oftentimes is that we don't want to hurt someone's feelings. We don't want to hurt the relationship that we have with them. And that's a valid concern. That's how our brain is wired, right? We've learned about that through this series. But taking out the personal says, take out the person. We're not addressing a person, right? We're addressing a specific behavior that occurred. And what was the effect of that behavior? And what's appropriate and inappropriate, whatever it is. But what we're really focused on is that it's not about a person, it's about a behavior. And that allows us to take the personal out, because we're not telling them that they're a bad person or that they're unproductive. We're saying that this behavior is unproductive. And we can take that personal side out and really look at what are the things that somebody needs to hear about the behavior that's taking place that would help them moving forward, be more productive, cordial, things like that. You just really work to find that. And so when we talk about taking out the personal, take out that it's an attack on somebody with feedback. It's not. It's about growth, about opportunity, right? It's about the behavior and how do we make a change. Another thing we always talk about is in the 21st century, this is very important, this is really strict to today's world, right? Is to start working on keeping things brief. Why that is the younger the generation, the shorter their attention span per research. Research has really shown that they struggle to pay attention for as long. So, when we talk about meetings with people, we say, hey, try not to have 3-hour long board meetings, because it really makes it hard for younger generations to stay engaged. And so when we look at keep it brief, with feedback, it's are we able to create a culture and a system where I can walk in as a leader into somebody's cubicle or their office and just stay standing, walk in, provide the 2 to 3 minutes that I need to, get the 2 or 3 minutes back and walk out. And that's a brief interaction with feedback. And by being brief, we're allowing people to just hear the news they need to hear and move forward. And we're not sitting down. It's our time to continually talk about, dive deeper into. It's let's get to the point. Here's what it is, and let's move forward. And you have to think that keep it brief is how this 21st century is done, right? Emails are not 10-page long documents. They're quick emails. Text messages even shortened that strand. Tweets have shortened that strand, right? We're used to quick, brief information, scrolling quickly, getting that feedback quickly. The next one talks about give feedback more often. In the 21st century, with the way the world is today, providing feedback more frequently, more often is going to be vitally important. Too often, those annual performance reviews that were maybe acceptable at one point are no longer acceptable. And that's because we're so used to receiving feedback so quickly, whether it be from parents and coworkers and teachers and things like that who are willing to give you the feedback on the spot. It's also the systems that are in place, right? The Facebooks and the Instagrams and things like that where there's immediate liking, right? Double click, yes, we like your picture, we like what you said about this. And so more often, and keep it brief, are aligned with each other in the 21st century because people's attention spans are shorter. And so they need that information more frequently, more often, more in front of their face, because it really lets them learn about it, see it, process it, and take it with them moving forward. So those are the most important things, right? We really want to tie into the mission and values. So that's all about, let's create the alignment so that somebody sees where do they belong and fit in with the long-term company vision. Now that's really important to people. Helps them bring loyalty, pride, alignment, meaning to their work. The second one talks about taking that personal out. Again, it's all about the fact that feedback is always looked at as a fearful thing because we don't want to hurt someone's feelings. But when we take the personal out and say, hey, we're not addressing you as a human, we're not addressing you as a person. No, we're addressing that this behavior created an outcome for the customer. And how are we going to better handle that in the future? Then you have the keep it brief and do it more often. When it comes to feedback in today's world, keeping it brief is so important. Find ways to be very brief, get to the point, not set those long meetings, and really make sure that people more often are hearing where are they at, because their lives were predicated mostly on receiving feedback very quickly on how things work. And so by creating systems and feedback in this 21st century that actually align with that is going to be extremely valuable. And the last thing is going to be really important here. Fifth and last thing is to keep everything in a growth mindset. Keep everything from the idea that there is learning involved. There was not a right answer. That's what we're talking about here. Think how powerful that is. If everything you come from is the idea that there is something to learn and grow from here. You know, we have always grown up understanding that there's one right way to do something in education, right? You're taught a way, this is how you do it. But that has been shifting through research and shifting in today's educational system is that we need to learn from our mistakes. We need to expand that there's more than one way to actually do something. And so my piece on number 5 is that it's all about growth. It's all about learning. When you go into feedback, keep that in mind. What's your biggest learning from this? What can you walk away doing differently? Really being a coach for them, being a person who looks for the opportunity and the growth, that's what that 5th one is all about. Because people in the 21st century want to go, where am I going? What is next? Where's my current performance? What can get me to the next spot? So yes, your systems are in place to provide more consistent feedback and create a place where peers can give feedback, where you as a leader can provide feedback on a system. But there is still nothing that can replace that really deep communication and connection we have when we go out of our way to really provide very good feedback, let someone know where they stand, how are they doing right now, then really the communication. That communication is essential. And so when we look at feedback in the 21st century, what we're really talking about is continually create the alignment in the mission and values. Take that personal out of it. Really just address the behavior. Keep it brief, right? Keep it brief. More often, we need that feedback more consistently, more often with that briefness, and then bring everything from a growth mindset. Really look at it. Where can I grow and develop and learn from this situation? And when we handle feedback from this way, we can really drive home feedback in the 21st century. But it takes systematic changes to say, how are we going to do this? How are we going to implement it? How are we going to create that behavior and that habit change within ourselves and our teams to allow ourselves to really give productive feedback in the 21st century? But what I want you to really know is feedback is essential. It's essential to growth, essential to success, essential to organizational performance. So don't take this lightly. When you think of feedback in your systems, in your things that are in place, look for ways to improve them. Look for ways to take your feedback to the next level when it comes to delivering it briefly, more often, with more compassion, with more growth mindset, and all the things we've talked about today. Really look for, how can I create a culture of feedback that takes advantage of the 21st century, but also acknowledges that there's a human component. There's behavior, there's conversation, there's things that we need to put in place so that we can really communicate effectively during feedback in this 21st century. So don't rely on the systems. Don't rely on the apps. Use them to supplement. How do we give effective feedback? And what I really want you to walk away today is, how can I be better at giving feedback? How can I be better at providing people that alignment with the mission and values? How can I be better at taking out that personal, really addressing only behavior? How can I work on keeping it brief? What would that look like in my office? How can I provide it more often? What's too often? How do I do that, and who do I talk to see what they would like to see? And lastly, remember that mindset shift. Always shift to everything's about growth and learning. Thank you very much for being here on our Feedback in the 21st Century webinar. Next week, we're really going to be talking about peer-to-peer feedback. It's an incredible webinar designed to talk about how do we create a culture of feedback by starting to not only do leader to direct report, but peer-to-peer feedback. And it's going to be very powerful, very strong, and it's going to create huge results within your organization. So I'll see you next week, 10 o'clock on Tuesday. We're going to be talking about peer-to-peer feedback. Otherwise, I really enjoyed our time here today. Hope you learned a little something. Write down that golden nugget, take it back, and really look at, how do I implement this human side of feedback in the 21st century? How do I supplement the online and the applicational side of feedback with the delivery, the communication, the way we provide feedback? Because that's what's going to make all the difference for you and your team. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you next week.